What's going on, guys? Back with another vlog style video regarding Battle for Bikini Bottom and the remaster coming, or remake, whichever one you believe it is. We'll talk about that as well. But as of right now, what we know about the remaster or remake that THQ Nordic announced the other day is that it's going to be a faithful remake or remaster of the original game, and it is to include cut content. Sorry, he's really loud. Yeah, I brought him along for the ride this time because he was getting lonely. But yeah, so it's supposed to include cut content from the game, such as robo-squidward is one of the things that was mentioned specifically. So we'll talk about some of those things based on what I think is going to be in the game, what I'd like to see in the game, and what some of the more competitive players who are in the more enthusiastic community would like to see make it into the game as well. So the first place we should probably look is the concept art section of Battle for Bikini Bottom. So there's some things in here that were either scrapped or maybe the ideas weren't fully developed. But the first thing you see here is the robo-squidward boss fight. And that is the thing that was actually mentioned as well. And you see in this image there are a bunch of boulders being hung up above the robot. Presumably you have to go around hitting the buttons to drop the boulders onto his tentacles and use that to defeat him as like one of the multi-hit things. You know, the bosses follow the format where you hit them a bunch of times and they break after like 9 hits. I'd see it would be probably similar to Robo SpongeBob, where instead of hitting the little nodes on his body, you hit his tentacles. Maybe could be part of it, or maybe you have to hit his tentacles to weaken him and then hit his head to take down one of his health, perhaps. But either way, I feel like if they're faithful to the concept art or what the original devs had in mind, it's not going to be a copy-paste from Truth or Square, because that was brought up before. The Truth or Square version of the Squidward boss fight is a little bit different, I believe. I didn't get to finish that game because I thought it was awful. I just couldn't force myself to finish it. So I guess I guess it's probably not going to be a copy of that, because this idea seems pretty different if they want to be faithful to it, which I assume they will be. Again, I want to go into this with the best possible attitude, assuming they are going to do what it takes to make this game a nice fan service, include all the stuff they want to include, and make it a really nice, polished version of this game that was rushed in the past. So if you look further into the concept art, you see more stuff like the Robo-Patrick boss fight, the Crab's Dream stuff, some of the early concepts for the robots. But one of the things I thought was cool is that there are concepts here for alternate costumes, which some of them were actually used in the movie game. And I think we might actually see some stuff from the movie game make its way into this as well. One of the things that I liked about the movie game, because again, I'm not a huge fan of it. I used to like the game when I was a kid, but I find it pretty boring to play now. But there are some things in the game that can be used in Battle for Bikini Bottom that could be nice to work their way in. One of the things I liked about the movie game was the cartwheel ability to make Patrick a more mobile character. It felt like in Battle for Bikini Bottom, SpongeBob and Sandy had a lot of abilities they could use to make the game a lot more fun to play. But with Patrick, he kind of could just, stun enemies and throw them and freeze terrain. I feel that the cartwheel would be necessary to make the game a lot faster paced and more fun to play. So I would like to see the cartwheel make it in alongside the costumes that you saw in the movie game. But another thing that would be nice, potentially, if it's done the right way, is the upgrade system. And I think that the upgrade system was handled kind of, sort of well in movie. I don't think that it's a feature that would make the game better or worse if it were in or not, but an upgrade feature for Battle for Bikini Bottom can potentially work, I think. And again, they could probably incorporate purchasing upgrades into the hub world somehow if they're trying to add things that may have been cut due to time constraints. I think it's appropriate to look at the movie game for ideas that could have potentially been scrapped in Battle for Bikini Bottom, because the game was not made too long after. And again, like, some of the devs from the movie game crossed over to Battle for Bikini Bottom as well. They shared some of the same devs. I know for certain that the lead software developer, because I've actually had a chance to speak to him one time on Discord, and he's in my stream a couple of years ago after watching my GDQ run. He mentioned that he was putting 60-hour work weeks into Battle for Bikini Bottom, but for the movie game he only worked on the King Neptune fight, so he didn't have as much of a say in what was happening for the movie game. But again, like there are definitely some devs that cross over at Heavy Iron between those games, and I believe that part of the reason why the movie game might not have had as many of the things that we like from Battle for Bikini Bottom was because they were cut short on staff and time, because they were splitting their attention between the Incredibles game and the movie game. So again, like some ideas that could have been scrapped from the movie game, some ideas that could have been scrapped from the Battle for Bikini Bottom because they were both short on time. We could maybe even see both of those things make it into the new game for Battle for Bikini Bottom. I'm looking at the concept art here. I'm seeing more stuff like some platforming on these boat cars. This is all, the source of this is the model resource website. I'll put this in the description, but you can see for yourself. There are some areas and costumes and bosses that did not make it into the game, but some of these could have been scrapped due to time constraints or because they felt it wouldn't be a necessary addition, or again, just too far off of, I guess, the style they were going for. But another thing here is Sandy's Tree Dome. Pretty cool concept art here that could have potentially been planned to be a full level at one point. And again, like, I always trash talk Revenge of the Flying Dutchman. I'm not a big fan of that game, but the one thing that it did right was it made the Tree Dome its own full level. Having a full level in the Tree Dome, again, because it was fully realized in the show as well, like Survival of the Idiots had a pretty good portrayal of what the Tree Dome is like with all the seasons and stuff, and the tree house and all that. It'd be pretty cool to see a fully realized Tree Dome in the remaster or remake, because I think it's safe to assume at this point that they're not working from the renderware build. They're going to be remaking the game from the ground up. So it'd be cool to see, like, again, if they're planning on adding cut content, adding the Tree Dome as a full level. With the robo-squid boss is another thing too, because usually the, I'm digressing a lot, sorry, but you know how after you beat 3 main world levels, you have to then fight a boss after that to get to the next area of the hub? He's getting a little antsy, sorry. It's okay. Yeah, maybe he's just getting a little bit antsy because he's holding this way. You good, bud? Alright, he likes that more. So, what was I saying before he started? I think I was saying that, yeah, so you have 3 hub worlds, right? You got 3 hub worlds, and there are 3 levels per world, and 1 boss guarding the next level. So if they're going to add a robo-squidward boss interjected, they're going to need some more levels to interject as well. And if they want to go crazy with adding content to this game, I think the Tree Dome as a fully realized level would be nice. I think that, again, cut content. It was rumored that Glove World was supposed to be a level, which I believe ended up manifesting as Goo Lagoon Pier, as like some of the concepts they had there with like the carnival games and whatever. I feel like that was supposed to be Glove World at one point, but then they ended up using those ideas for the pier. So we could probably see Glove World, Tree Dome, and maybe some other third area as well in the hub section with the robo-squidward boss fight blocking the next area. And, you know, that would probably come with some other areas in Bikini Bottom too. Maybe they could add in the diner some other things that were shown maybe in other SpongeBob games, like the Sand Stadium. That could also be a cool thing to throw in. Because if they're committing to adding things that were cut due to time constraints, I'm curious to see what the devs would have to say about what they wanted to put in as well. Now, Heavy Iron just recently resurfaced, and they rebranded and added social media to their website and everything. So we might see Heavy Iron devs that may have worked on the game in the past give some advice to Purple Lamp Studios, which is the studio that's working on the game. Maybe they'll be able to key them in on some things that they felt would be important to add to a remake. But I think that two of the things that I think I actually did not recap this as well, that some of the things that were cut from the game because I got distracted. But there was supposed to be a fully realized level of Patrick's Dream with it's like an ice cream land where you run through and there are ice cream cones stuck in the ground everywhere. It's kind of reminiscent of the Goofy Goober area, I'm Ready Depression in the movie game. Maybe some of those assets that were used for that would have been used for the movie game and the ice cream areas. Maybe they could be used in the newer game, like remastered, remodeled, and whatnot. Some of those concepts could probably be reused for the ice cream dream. Another thing, too, is there was supposed to be another phase of the Robo SpongeBob boss fight where Patrick throws debris at the Muscle Bob robot to defeat it. And while I think that's cool, I think it'd be unbalanced to only have Patrick as a character that can fight in that battle. So I would like to see a Sandy phase as well. If you're going to add a Patrick phase, add a Sandy phase to that final boss fight as well. And we're getting to the point, again, like, I know this is all just, like, wonder and hopefulness and dreaming at this point. By the way, if you're wondering, like, this is all cat hair, by the way, because he sheds a lot. He's a big, fluffy boy. So it's all, like, speculation at this point and, like, saying, I hope this gets in, I hope this gets in. The question is, at this point, like, how many spatulas are going to be in this game? Because I wouldn't be speculating any of this if it weren't for them saying they're going to add a major boss fight. Maybe it could be a post-game thing to make it work, but at this point, I think it might be implied there are going to be more than 100 spatulas in this game, which would then be cool to see more socks, more hidden areas. There are some areas in Battle for Bikini Bottom that feel like there aren't enough socks hiding around, and you could argue, again, like the graveyard only has 3 socks because you want them to be harder to find and more rewarding to find at that point than they would be in Jellyfish Fields, where they're pretty much at every corner. But I think that Jellyfish Fields is also a much larger level, and there's much more to explore, so it makes sense to have more socks. So if we could see these other levels more fully realized with more socks and more spatulas, that'd be also pretty interesting as well. But the one thing that is a personal issue with this game, and again, I'm not going to talk about the voice actors because you guys already know that. Well, actually, you know what? That actually would be a relevant thing to talk about. So let's talk about the voice actors, and then let's talk about other boss stuff. So, as you guys may have heard, Tim Conway passed away recently. So it's very sad news, but if you don't know who he is the voice actor for Barnacle Boy. And it's, again, we have no idea what's going to happen with this now because Barnacle Boy was a character featured in the game, and he was one of the side quest mission givers. And he's not going to be able to voice Barnacle Boy in this game. So I think what could happen is maybe they'll get an impressionist to do Barnacle Boy's voice. Maybe if, I don't know, I'm not up to date on the recent SpongeBob happenings, but if somebody recently replaced Ernest Borgnine in the SpongeBob show, he could obviously play Mermaid Man in this game, but I feel like they might have retired those characters. I'm not entirely sure, but I feel like there was a rumor somewhere that Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy were retired as characters at some point in the show's development, past the time when I was watching it as a kid. I'm not sure about this. Again, this is just a vlog style thing. I want to turn on the camera and talk to you guys, but again, even if they had been retired as characters, I think the guy who played Mermaid Man in Lights Camera Pants, Joe White, I believe. I'm getting them mixed up. There were more than one. There's more than one voice actor who played Mermaid Man at some point in the development of the video games back in the day. But Mr. Krabs, again, Clancy Brown, probably might be on board for this because he voiced Revenge of the Flying Dutchman. And I feel like part of the reason why he might not have voiced in Battle for Bikini Bottom is because he was stretched thin with other projects, perhaps because SpongeBob was popping at this point. And I think that the SpongeBob movie was also in development as well. I find it miraculous, by the way, that Tom Kenny's in pretty much all these games, by the way. That's pretty funny. But anyway, you're talking about voice actors. Another thing, too, is I'm not sure if they got the original voice actor for Bubble Buddy, and I think since then he's returned to the show as well. So that would be cool to see more of the side characters get their original voice actors as well. What I don't want to see is characters from the show past Season 3 make it into this game. I want it to be true to the original 3 series, or 2.5 really, because Battle for Bikini Bottom is based on the first 2 or 2.5 seasons, like half of Season 3. So I want it to be like a time capsule. I want it to be a time capsule of OG SpongeBob because I feel like this game is being released as more of a nostalgia trip and a fan service than to appeal to newer SpongeBob fans and the kids who are watching SpongeBob today. And then again, like, who even watches SpongeBob today? But that's a point for another topic, another video. But anyhow, we were talking about boss fights as well. I would like to see, again, I feel like Prawn was mentioned in, like, very briefly as, like, an intro character for one of the Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy episodes. Like, you know how they have the Adventures of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, and they show all the different characters and enemies and villains, and they show them at the end, and then the episode starts. A lot of the Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy episodes start like that, I feel like prawn may have briefly been shown or mentioned in one of those. It's been a while since I watched the original SpongeBob episodes, but if they did make a prawn as a character for this game, that's kind of cool. But again, I feel like it was a missed opportunity, or maybe there were some licensing issues with Man Ray making it into this game. And I felt like it would have been a perfect opportunity to have Man Ray as a boss in this game, because if you remember, the boss fight in the Mermalair takes place in the Villain Containment Center, where Man Ray was kept in the show inside the frozen tartar sauce. And they don't use tartar sauce in this, but again, it could have been a perfect opportunity to have Man Ray break free from the tartar sauce and have to fight him as maybe Patrick or SpongeBob. Which, by the way, as I was saying earlier with balancing issues, SpongeBob gets 2 mini fights and Sandy only gets 1. So it'd be nice to see Patrick get a mini boss fight as well. So Patrick versus Man Ray fight in the Mermalair as opposed to SpongeBob versus Prawn. That would be something I'd like to see as well. Again, if you're straying too far from the original game, that might be changing a little bit too much, because at that point you're changing content and not adding content. But at the same time, there are some things that I think should be changed about this game, or at least fixed. There are some problems with some of these levels. Now, I've played this game for thousands and thousands of hours, and some of the things I have grievances with this game, or rather issues with this game personally, are the fact that some of the boss fights, the Robo Patrick and Robo Sandy boss fights, they drag on for a little bit too long, and they're not really that fast-paced and exciting. The Robo SpongeBob boss fight's perfect. I wouldn't change a thing about that. I wouldn't even put checkpoints in that fight, because the checkpoints would make it a lot less intense. I like it the way it is. So, we'll talk about Robo Sandy and Robo Patrick. I think they feel like pretty monotonous fights, and again, like talking as a speedrunner, I'm biased because it's something we have to fight in every single run, at least if we're playing any percent or 100%. So I feel like if they could figure out some way to make them more exciting. There was actually, the modders for this game confirmed that there were supposed to be Chucks, the robot Chucks, the missile shooters. They were supposed to be an industrial park as like little side enemies to throw torpedoes at you during the fight, but it was scrapped eventually because they decided it wasn't a good idea, apparently. But thankfully they realized that, because the movie developers didn't realize this, and they put spitters at the end of the Neptune fight, which is the dumbest thing. I'll never forgive them for that. That is such bad game design. We can go on and on about how bad the movie game's final fight is for putting those spitters in that, the pattern jumping and the broken floors. That was such terrible game design. So I'm glad they decided not to put side enemies in the boss fights. But if they could figure out a way to add side robots to the boss fights this time around to make it more interesting, and they make it work and it's fun and not intrusive, I'm all for it though. So that's how they could maybe improve the boss fights, is maybe look into those kinds of things. As for the rest of the game, though, there are some problems, I think, with... Oh, no, he's getting a little feisty. It's like little love bites. Does your cat ever do that to you? Like, a little nibble on your hand? Well, anyway, he's going to town. So, as far as the other levels go, the Kelp Forest is a pretty obvious one. I think the Kelp Forest, at this point, like most people remember it as being one of the worst levels in the game because of the bus stop switching and the puzzles that were kind of hard to figure out. Yeah, that needs to be fixed a little bit, I think. One of the easy ways I think you can fix the Kelp Forest is, well, let's start from the beginning. The Kelp Woods has this issue where there's no platforming that is mandatory. You can kind of just run through the whole thing, and they just kind of litter robots into the first area of the Kelp Forest to try and, I guess, make it a little bit more difficult to pass through. But it all feels like filler. Like, the movie game has this filler where it constantly throws enemies at you to make the game longer. I feel like the Kelp Forest, the woods section, would benefit from having... it would definitely benefit from having more platforming that is not exclusive to finding the lost campers and collecting socks. It should be platforming to get to the end of the level. That's how the Kelp Forest, the first area, should be designed. The second area, I don't think there's much of an issue with that. It's more that the area is too dark on certain versions of the game. If you're playing the Xbox version, it looks fine, because the lighting is actually very good on the Xbox version. But again, like, if they fix the lighting in the Kelp Forest for all versions this time, I'm sure it will, because, you know, obviously games look way better nowadays. It would be highly beneficial to making that area a lot easier to figure out, because it's hard to see what you're supposed to do, and being able to see buttons and tikis from a distance would be very helpful for completing that puzzle. As for the Kelp Caves, The glaring issue with the kelp caves is that you have to constantly go back to the bus stops to change characters. Changing characters in the kelp forest is a pain in the ass. It makes it like Donkey Kong 64, where you got to change characters to collect certain notes, and it's just a tedious backtracking quest. You could probably just add more bus stops into the kelp forest, kelp caves to finish that. And I don't have an issue with the Mermaid Man time challenge. I think it's fine. It's a little difficult for kids, but again, it's not that bad. I think that may be confusing which way to jump, but there's nothing I would change about that. So that's how I would fix the kelp forest. Rock Bottom is another level that comes to mind where it tried to use more advanced SpongeBob mechanics, but it kind of fails because it's not really clear where you're supposed to go. I think making Rock Bottom more spread out and larger, give it more space to breathe. Again, because console limitations are way... there are not as many console limitations now, so they could probably afford to stretch it out and make it a lot bigger. But there are a lot of gaps in Rock Bottom, especially because I'm a speedrunner. You notice that there are a lot of gaps you can cross without, that you would normally not be able to cross. In fact, you can actually glide from the swing-along spatula area to the end of Rock Bottom as Sandy. It's not very hard to do either. You can totally just make it there. So a lot of stuff in Rock Bottom is crammed and close together. The solutions to all the puzzles aren't as obvious. So I would like to see them get fixed and make it more clear. Make it so it's easier to understand what's going on and where to go. It's funny because in the speedrun, we only go through like half of downtown Rock Bottom because it's so, half the level is completely useless. They should, again, if they're going to remaster this game and remake stuff and fix problems with it that it had before, I think that they should add more socks and collectibles on the opposite side of downtown Rock Bottom, because all of it's pretty much crammed to this one side, and you don't, if you're playing the game optimally, you don't have to go to that one side of Rock Bottom at all. But again, spacing things out would make the puzzles a lot better. It would make it so that whole side of Rock Bottom is actually useful. So again, if they space things out, it could be a lot better, honestly. It could fix all those problems just by spacing out Rock Bottom and giving it more room to breathe. Other than that, I like a lot of the level design in this game. It feels like the difficulty progression, it makes sense in this game. It ramps up pretty steadily to the final epic battle at the end, to say the least. But the problem that I've noticed is that there isn't enough use of wall jumping and SpongeBob storage. He just sneezed. The SpongeBob storage and wall jumping are really fun mechanics that should be used more. And again, the movie game did utilize wall jumping a lot better. I like what they did with wall jumping in the movie game with more moving platforms and stuff like that. But the SpongeBob storage in the movie game was way overkill, and it was presented as more of a mini-game side quest than actually being part of the game. So I would like to see those things incorporated more, but not to the point where it's distracting or intrusive, like how the movie game made slides and driving and SpongeBob usage a little bit more intrusive than actually benefiting the platforming levels. So yeah, as for sliding, maybe add more of it. Don't take away too much. Don't take away any of the sliding, honestly. Obviously the sliding in the movie game was excessive because the devs realized that it was one of the most fun parts of the game. So I think adding more sliding can be helpful, but if you go to the extreme where it's like rock slide in movie, where you're sliding down the path for 8 straight minutes, it's probably not going to be that fun to do. So Battle for Bikini Bottom gets the sliding right because it has little stop-offs at the, little pit stops, I guess you could call them, maybe, little secrets on the sides of the, little secrets on the sides. I think he wants to get up. You want to get up, buddy? Did you hear that? He's adorable. Alright, you can sit on the ground for a bit. Ugh. Anyway, there are little pit stops in Battle for Bikini Bottom. Like in Sand Mountain, there are places where you can walk off the slide and you can collect socks and do secrets and stuff. Like Guppy Mountain has an area like that. You can just kind of pop off the slide for a second, catch your breath. Sand Mountain has especially Sand Mountain as in Slide 3 with Larry Time Challenge. There are some areas in there where you can hop off the slide and jump on the giant icicle pillars that are stuck in the ground. There's things like that to do on the slides. So I'd like to see more of those, maybe if they plan on adding more socks Again, if they're trying to stay faithful to the game, but they're also trying to add content, that kind of leaves a gray area where, like, do you only want to add things that would have only been added if they had time, or do you want to add more things that can make the game more expansive and more fun, add more content to make the game last longer? Are the Heavy Iron devs that worked on this game, because again, a lot of those guys are long gone from Heavy Iron at this point. They're not really working with them anymore. They're all split off to different studios. Would they be able to give Purple Lamp Studios the advice they would need to be able to accomplish this, or would Purple Lamp Studios just be like, okay, well, it looks like this was supposed to be in based on the concept art, this was supposed to be in based on the concept art, let's add these things and maybe expand upon the rest of the game too. We don't know how they're going to approach it. We just know that they're planning on adding cut content and fully realizing the game as it was supposed to be without time constraints. So those are some things to look forward to. I'm not sure if any of these things will make it in. I'm just like, it's so crazy because when they say they're going to add an entirely new boss fight, if you want to obey the game's format, 3 levels and a boss, you have to add 3 more levels, or maybe they could split it up like 2 levels and a boss, but that just wouldn't be right. That wouldn't be faithful to the original game. And then again, you see the concept art with all this stuff about like the tree dome having all these other things too. Because if you look at these levels, they sketched out concept art for Goo Lagoon, Kelp Forest, Jellyfish Fields, Dutchman's Graveyard. There's concept art for all these levels. And one of the levels that they have is like, they put SpongeBob in it at some point. Like, SpongeBob's in here running around in downtown or whatever. SpongeBob's running around, standing over Jellyfish Fields, standing over Kelp Forest. Here, SpongeBob is standing over he's looking up to the tree dome. It's got to be something they plan on putting in the game at one point. And again, like, if you don't remember, the Flying Dutchman's Graveyard is not something that was from the original show. The Flying Dutchman's Graveyard was made up by the devs of Revenge of the Flying Dutchman, which is, by the way, the game is horrible with obeying canon for SpongeBob because the Dutchman lives in a damn a stupid bottle. Like he's like a genie. You rub the bottle and he comes out. It's not accurate to SpongeBob the show, but I suppose that the devs of Battle for Bikini Bottom saw the idea of the Dutchman's Graveyard as a really cool thing, and they expanded upon it and changed the lighting and the colors and everything, and they made it into something that was actually super memorable. And I think a lot of people, like they when they think of SpongeBob games, they think of the Flying Dutchman's Graveyard because it was such an iconic thing in more than one SpongeBob game. So again, where was I going with this? Right. It seems that the devs of Heavy Iron working on Battle for Bikini Bottom took inspiration from Revenge of the Flying Dutchman with Dutchman's Graveyard and a potentially planned tree dome level. So we'll see if any of these things make it into the game. There are some robot fish here in the concept art. There's a giant robot boss in downtown Bikini Bottom. Maybe they could add something like that. I doubt it though. That to me seems like something that was scrapped. I'm just so curious to know if there are any devs who worked on this game who are with Purple Lamp Studios right now who would be able to say, like, we were working on this and that, but we didn't have time to finish it. Because remember, this game had a year development time. It was not a lot of time to get this game done. There could be so much more done with it. And if they're somewhere deep into development at this point with Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated, they might have the time and the bandwidth to continue adding more things. But I really hope they don't rush this game. I really hope that they try to stay faithful to it, and they try to also follow up on their promises to make the game have a lot of the things that it was lacking before that the original devs intended on adding. Because again, like, it's kind of remarkable that this licensed video game based on a TV show is getting a full remake. Like, that is something incredible. That's the first of its kind, isn't it? I can't think of another game that's like that. Like, I'm thinking there are some games that later became TV shows that were remastered, but this is a game that was based on an idea that came from a TV show, and it's being remastered 15 years later. If there are any other games like that are based on cartoons that are being remastered, like, 15 years later, that's got to be a first, right? That's got to be a first. It's based on a section of the show that is just so. There are like 12 seasons of SpongeBob now, right? This is based on the first 2.5 seasons. Like, what do we even expect now? This is such a new idea. Is taking a game like this that's so old, and the concept of SpongeBob has been expanded so much. But what direction are they going to go with the art style? What direction are they going to go with the storyline, the characters, the areas? Are they going to include things from the new show? Well, I hope they don't. It's still possible they might. We just don't know. Now, for those of you who are watching my channel for speedruns, I want to take some time now that we've been talking for like half an hour. Geez, I want to talk now more about what the implications for speedrunning are. So, if you're interested in the deeper, more technical aspects of this game, there's a lot of subject matter there. I highly recommend you check out my tutorial videos on my channel, like my playlist for tutorials, to see more like how technically in-depth this game is. But there are a lot of things that the renderware engine, again, which the original Battle for Bikini Bottom runs on, is the renderware engine. Back in 2003 is what they made it on. The renderware engine allows for a lot of really cool exploits and glitches, mostly based on the animations glitching, like cruise boosting, elbowing, one-frame damage jumps. Those types of things are possible because of animation glitches. And those things, that they're remaking this game from the ground up from a different engine, it's not going to have any of those things unless they purposefully add them in. Now, the way I feel about games intentionally leaving glitches in and exploits and things that were not intended for casual play, it's okay as long as it's not intrusive to the casual player. If it makes the casual game, if it affects the game casually, it's not okay to have it in. But as for Battle for Bikini Bottom, the reason why the speedrun is so mind-blowing is that you're watching things be done that you had no idea were even possible, because with the way it works is one thing leads to the next, that leads to the next, that leads to the next. Cruise boosting makes several things possible, like L clipping. The cruise boost inputs of being able to use the bubble bowl and the cruise bubble on the same frame allows L bowling. So L clipping and L bowling are two different things, by the way. L jumping is also another one. One frame damage boost animation thing, but again, without the one frame damage boost that you had to deliberately understand to be able to do, you wouldn't be able to skip a lot of these levels as well, and skip tutorial areas and stuff like that. We use a lot of the same tech skill across different areas to skip a lot of these levels. Cruise boosting leads to lag clipping as well. It leads to cruise controlled sponge gliding, which sponge gliding, again, in another case, is a different type of glitch as well. There are so many different things that would not be possible if it weren't for the renderware engine being so busted. And again, like, the thing about the studio that is making this game, they don't have a long history of making games, but the history they do have with the game they made most recently, I can't remember the name, they were pretty responsive to their community and showed interest in making the game as likable as possible for its hardcore fans. And I hope that they will at least consider taking some advice from people who have played the game for this long, who understand, at the very least, how the movement should feel and how the platforming should feel, because that's something about this game you have to get right. When the devs of Truth or Square tried to replicate Battle for Bikini Bottom, they couldn't get the right feel because they just went in a very stiff and less free direction. Part of why this game feels so good is because you can grab pretty much any ledge. You can make ledges out of things that aren't ledges. That's how you can clip through a lot of the stuff in this game, is with that kind of stuff, with grabbing ledges on where they're not supposed to be ledges. The movement is very sensitive. The camera is at just the right angle. If you don't get these things right about Battle for Bikini Bottom, you end up with Truth or Square. So I really hope they at least take some advice from people who have played the game for a very long time and would be able to pinpoint exactly what the small little things that make this game what it is are. Because it's not just a SpongeBob game. It's not just an open world SpongeBob game. Like Revenge of the Flying Dutchman, to an extent, was that, even though it was kind of linear. It's like Conker's Bad Fur Day linear, where half of it's open and the other half feels kind of linear. It's kind of like that. But this is so much more than just an open world SpongeBob game. It's so much more than that. The mechanics are unique and fun in a way that can't be replicated by any other game. So I hope that if they're building the engine from the ground up again, they at least take the time to try and replicate the movement and stuff like that as well as possible. As far as technical stuff like cruise boosting and tech skill like that. If it doesn't make it into the game, so be it. But I think it'd be really cool if they shout out the dedicated community behind this game and at least make it possible to use the Bubble Bowl and Cruise Bubble at the same time and see like some of the wacky tech skill that came from the original game make it into the new one. Because a lot of what kept this game alive over the years is what we've built over here. People investing their time into finding these glitches and tricks and perfecting them, mastering them, practicing them all day is what kept this game alive all these years as a passionate hobby. And it'd be nice to see them potentially add some of these things back into the game if they do build it from the ground up. Again, I offered THQ Nordic. I said, listen, I would like to help promote your game if there's any way possible. I can help you market it, promote it, endorse it. I would love to because I want to play this game. I'm eager to play this game and help it grow just as much as they want to help it grow. So I offered them by email an opportunity to help promote the game. But I also want to contact the studio as well because plenty of times I've seen people offer being play testers to some of these newer games that come out. Even in the past, like one of the developers, so the developers of Oddworld, I don't know if you know what Oddworld is, but it's in like an old school platformer game, I believe. One of the previous speedrunners of this game and former world record holder Cole Odd is what he goes by. He was involved with glitch hunting and cracking the game open for Oddworld. He was a speedrunner of it, like a side game, I suppose. And the developers of Oddworld actually watched his speedruns and they credited him for figuring out bugs in the game. They credited him in the credits of Oddworld. You can actually find his name in there because he supposedly helped them develop the game by finding glitches in it. Now, obviously, like, we don't want them to patch stuff out, but we do know that a lot of these game developers, especially for a studio that's as small as Purple Lamp, they might be willing to work with us and help make the game like fully realize it's like something that the passionate players and the casual players can both enjoy, because I think that's very important. You need to have a game, especially in an era of streaming, where you want streamers to enjoy the game for an extended period of time so they have a reason to keep playing it. If a streamer doesn't see a reason to play a game past its casual point, why would they continue streaming it? With a speedrun, it makes the game infinitely replayable. I can vouch for that because I've played Battle for Bikini Bottom almost every day for the past 3 years, and it's still fun to me because it's the thrill of improving your time and seeing new people get better at the game and finding new tricks and glitches. It's endless. It's an endless pit of fun. When a game has amazing base mechanics and a dedicated community, you can create something out of nothing like that. You can make a game into a competitive scene, and that's what we've been doing for the past 3 years or so. There's so much potential with appealing to your competitive audience. That's why like some studios and companies like Nintendo are starting to see that if you appeal to like competitive communities like the Smash community, they're going to help make your game so much bigger because all these huge events that are circled around competitive fighting games. I think it's like Smash has become like it's inserted itself into the fighting game community to some extent, or if you disagree with that, it's at least become its own fighting game community, and that brings a lot of views and a lot of ad revenue, which is very relevant and desirable by these game studios and publishers making these games. It makes their product more valuable. So I do believe that competitive gaming is relevant, extremely relevant in game development. It really should be considered, like how important it is, really, I would say. It should be one of the focuses, I would say, of a remaster of a game that was widely forgotten but still remembered and kept alive by its passionate community. It'd be awesome if they'd be willing to work with us and discuss like how they can make the game more replayable. And that would definitely be like helping re-implement some of the cool tech skill and things that might be lost in translation from the original to the new one. Because again, like to me, like games mean different things to different people. It's like movies and television, any form of media. Battle for Bikini Bottom to me means a much different thing than it meant to somebody who played it maybe 10 years ago for fun, or even a week ago for fun. If you want to make a truly great game that's faithful to its original, you got to be as faithful to its mechanics as possible. It can't just be a different game with Battle for Bikini Bottom skin over it. It has to be it has to play like Battle for Bikini Bottom. I would rather have Battle for Bikini Bottom with totally different characters involved and a different storyline with the same mechanics than a Truth or Square that's just trying to be a battle, but it's not. It's so important. You don't realize these things until you really look deeper into games, but the foundational mechanics of a game are what makes the game great. You need to have the correct foundation to move forward. And I hope and I have faith that Purple Lamp will realize this, that they know it already most likely, what makes Battle for Bikini Bottom special. And then we could talk on and on about games like Ocarina of Time 3D that kept crazy things like wrong warping and tech skill like that. Again, I'm not an expert on Zelda speedruns. I just know that specifically that like they kept wrong warping. I guess like maybe Hessing they kept in that game as well. You can look more into that. There are plenty of content creators circled around Zelda games. I'm not an expert on that, but I'm just saying like it is possible for a game developer to be like, hey, this is something about the game that has personality, and we're going to keep it in, or we're going to re-implement it and whatnot. It's not impossible, and for a game this small, again, I talked about this in my previous video, discussing how exciting it is, like not really reacting to it, but giving my opinions on my first impressions on the game being remastered. This is a game that is forgotten for the most part and very small, and most of the relevant people playing it are playing it competitively or glitch hunting or looking deeper into it than what a casual player would. Competitive gaming is very relevant nowadays, and you can make anything that is fun to play competitive. Even a SpongeBob game from 2003. Trust me, because that's what my entire streaming career is based on. Like, I wouldn't be here if this game weren't as good as it is. And you guys, again, like, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for you guys either. So when I wrap up this video, I just want to say thank you guys for being so supportive lately. I can't even speak. I'm so overwhelmed with how much positive support this community has gotten lately. And I know this is usually the point in the video where people click off because they feel like they've gotten all the information they need or all my opinions that they need. But just hear me out. Like, you guys are making a huge difference in my life lately. Coming to my channel, showing so much support. We've had double our view count. My sub count on Twitch is going all the way back up. It's really a resurgence of something that I thought was starting to die. And it means a lot to me that you guys are letting me fulfill this dream of playing Battle for Bikini Bottom full time. Because you guys are just as much passionate as I am. And it's a miracle to really see that come out. And finally, after so many years of grinding this game, see more and more people appreciate the game in a new way, in a modern way. That you can, again, it's like SpongeBob, the show. When you're a kid, it means something different to you than it means as an adult. Rewatching SpongeBob as an adult, replaying Battle for Bikini Bottom as an adult, two very different things. And I think it's incredible how much replay value this game has when you really go deeper in and you look at it with a deeper lens. So I leave you with these thoughts. If you're interested in helping this community grow and become more relevant in a fun and productive way, speedrunning is not one of those things that takes a special talent or any kind of like insane dedication to get into. Like, if you're comparing yourself to me, who's spent so much time on this game and has played it the entire time for the past 3 years, like, yeah, it seems discouraging, but you don't have to compare yourself to people. Speedrunning is about comparing yourself to yourself. You can experience the joy of lowering your time by hours and then minutes and then seconds and feeling the rush every time you beat your time as often as you want or as seldom as you want. You can do whatever you want with it. And once you have the game and a controller, you're good to go. You can just play. It makes a game that you forgot about, it's collecting dust in your closet, into something that you can constantly replay over and over. And that's why all the stuff that we have here is here. This has all been built on the foundation of giving a game that you love infinite replay value. And I would love to see more like content creation like people do for SM64 with tutorials and hacking, randomizer, that kind of content. Even like glitch videos, more of that coming from new content creators surrounding this game to see it build up as a community that can support one another. And eventually, like, maybe a lot of us can be doing this full time making content on the game, improving the game as a speed run. All that stuff. Even if it's not speed running, there's something you can do to get involved with to help keep this game alive. I just happen to be a speedrunner, so I'm biased. I think it's really fun, but that's just a recommendation. If you are curious though about learning how to do tricks in this game, you can check out tutorials. I have a playlist of tutorials in my description. You can check that out. They're like 3 to 5 minute videos on how to speedrun the game, how to play the level in certain ways, how to that sounded kind of silly. I meant to say how to play the level in reversed orders and sequence break. They're like little tiny blurbs on how to do certain tricks at separate videos. They explain everything thoroughly and they're edited properly, unlike this, which is just a vlog of me talking. I have ones like that where I just speak about the game, like how to, at a full segmented run, just go through a run and talk about how to do it. But there are others where I just have like little tiny ones. So you can check out those if you're just trying to test the waters and see if you like doing the tricks. Cruise boosting tutorial is super fun. Robo SpongeBob skip tutorial is super fun. And again, like if you have any questions about how to play and you want to like get more involved with the community, I have a Discord server at discord.gg/shift. You can go in there and ask questions, communicate with other fans of the game, other runners of the game, people who have contributed for years. You'll find the most passionate people about Battle for Bikini Bottom in that server, or the game's speedrunning server, which is on their leaderboards. But again, for now, if you're just trying to get your feet wet, check out my server, discord.gg/shift if you're a Discord guy. And if you want to tweet at me, ask any questions about the game, or have any ideas about what you'd like to see in the remaster, go to @shiftposting. That's my Twitter handle. If you didn't get it, like it's just shit posting with shift in it, so it's pretty easy to remember if you're curious. I'm always active on there, always answering questions, so you can feel free to fire away there. And again, another thing you should do, definitely, if you want to help grow my community personally, if you like what you see here and help me out as a content creator and allow me to keep doing this full time, my Twitch channel is my main account on the internet. I'm trying to be better about YouTube. I'm trying to upload more and do more stuff like this to make it more engaging for YouTube viewers, but my Twitch channel is where you're going to see the most content. So you can check out twitch.tv/shift is my main account on the internet. You can check that out too if you're interested. Anyway, I love sitting here and talking, but I mean, that's just the streamer in me. I could sit and face a wall and talk for hours on end. I could just do this. So I gotta cut it off now because I've already explained everything I want to. If you want to hear more, my streams are kind of like podcasts where we just talk about this stuff while I do speed runs. It's basically the same thing, but Battle for Bikini Bottom speed runs and gameplay are on the side while I'm talking about this stuff. So they're side and side. They work together. It's a good time. So I'm just gonna let you guys go now. I hope you had fun with this video. If you have any ideas, by the way, if you have an idea we talked about robo-squidward section, right? Could potentially be like Tree Dome, Glove World, 2 things that were potentially cut from the game. If you have a third idea for a third area that you think from the first 3 seasons you'd like to see in the game, like a third completely different area that was not seen in the original Battle for Bikini Bottom, let me know in the comments section, because again, we could keep talking about this stuff. And Purple Lamp Studios is a pretty small studio. They might be interested in hearing what we have to say. They might be in touch. So get brainstorming, guys. I think we had the power to make a difference. Just a reminder that this game was all but dead before any of the speedrun stuff and resurgence came around. Some people are saying that the whole community that we built is part of the reason why, like that influence branched out and caused this remaster to eventually happen, just because of the raw passion that came from this game recently in the past few years. So you never know, like you can make a difference. So let those ideas rip. Let's keep the discussion going, and let's keep pumping out videos for Battle for Bikini Bottom. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.